welcome to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams, your host. Now, let's get right to it. It's our Friday headlines. And it's been one heck of a week, no question about it. The ticket is in for the Democratic Party, and as we predicted 3 weeks ago, California Senator Kamala Harris will be the nominee for vice president. She was picked by another friend of the podcast, former vice president of the United States and Democratic nominee Joe Biden. The two of them had a good rollout. They picked up in about 24 hours time, somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. And in a 48-hour period of time, they broke the $50 million barrier. So there's enthusiasm for this ticket. It's a solid ticket. It's one of the reasons we felt that Senator Harris would be the presumptive vice presidential nominee and the good pick, although there were quite a few very qualified women. It was Senator Harris who we felt would get the final nod, and she did. So that happened this week. What didn't happen this week is, as you all know out there, if you are someone who is unemployed at the moment because of what has gone on with the management of COVID-19 here in the United States, we did not get a stimulus bill. And to put insult into injury, the President of the United States, President Trump, Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell broke off conversations, and Senator McConnell sent the Senate home. And so therefore, Speaker Pelosi then allowed the House members to go home. So what that means is they won't be back until after Labor Day, so that's September. So those of you out there who are in need of stimulus money are not going to get it. As simple as that. I can't tell you how upset I am to see that at a time when we have a pandemic in this country, that the leaders of our country are not sitting down at the bargaining table and talking to each other until they can figure out a way to make this work is just utterly beyond me. So we will stay on that, and we'll continue to see what we can do about finding if there is a solution. If so, where is it going to come, and how quickly will it come? So we will be all over that. One last thing before we get to our exciting guest for today. Remember, and put this circle on your calendar, we will be starting Monday doing a whole week at the Democratic National Convention. Now, remember, it's a virtual convention, so it will be held in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We will not be in Milwaukee because, frankly, as you know, as I said, it's a virtual convention. We will be in D.C. covering it. We will have a star-studded cast of guests, everyone from Stacey Abrams, who are going to talk to us about voter suppression and how the Democrats are working on getting that overturned and getting more polling places open. We'll be talking to some players from the National Basketball Association who have put together a massive Get Out to Vote campaign on behalf of Black Lives Matter, as well as inner city voting. So that'll be on the docket. We'll be speaking to a number of members of the NBA, and we'll also be talking with some of the more notable people, AOC and Bernie Sanders, about who is going to be taking up the mantle for the progressives in the Democratic Party, since Bernie's going to be turning 80 and he is not going to run for president again. So who basically will replace Bernie as the standard bearer for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party? We'll be talking to Tom Perez, the head of the DNC himself, talking about how the fundraising situation is going and how they plan to position themselves as they get ready for the 2020 campaign. Because, of course, there's a number of Senate seats. Their hope is to flip the Senate and the White House at the same time. That would put them, the Democrats, in charge of all three of the legislative branches of government. So we'll see. We'll also, hopefully, we have had a pretty good track record of this, get one, if not both, of the members of the ticket, be it presumptive. By that time, he will be the confirmed candidate for president of the United States from the Democratic Party, former Vice President Joe Biden, or we will get, as I said before, another friend of the podcast, Kamala Harris, the senator from California, who will be running for the VP race for the Democrats. So that's coming next week. We have, as you know how this works, gang, we've done this before. You know the drill. There's plenty of guests we're going to probably pop in there that we don't know about yet, because things happen on the fly, and you sometimes get some people that you didn't know you could get, and you get them. So we'll be out there mining to get all the best guests and get you all of the information from the Democratic National Committee all next week. A lot of live stuff. So we'll keep you posted on what's going to be live. We'll keep you posted on when we'll be live every night. So that's an easy one, from 6 o'clock Eastern time until at least, say 10 o'clock Eastern time. So we'll be doing, 4-hour stints all next week as we go through the convention, and we'll be talking and doing podcasts. And so you'll have plenty of content coming up in the next week. So if you're a subscriber, by all means, it's going to come right to your phone or to your tablet, or to both. If you're not yet a subscriber, well, shame on you. You can find us at the Apple Podcast Store, Google Play, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, YouTube, just to name a few. And so by all means, check us out, subscribe, and be part of the army here, whereas we get ready for the Democratic National Convention. And of course, in, I think, 10 days time, 10 days, guys, 2 weeks time, we'll be doing the RNC convention. Again, virtually. It'll be in Charlotte. We'll be in DC. So that's coming up. All right. So today we have with us, as we take a global look, we take a step away from domestic politics, we can go global. And we have a very entertaining gentleman, someone who is a Renaissance man. He is someone who is an artist. He is a playwright. He is a very creative person, but he's also a very, very good businessman. Vinod Sekhar is a Malaysian businessman and the first Asian recipient of the Global Green Award for Global Technology Development. The World Economic Forum names him one of the 40 new Asian leaders in 2003. And at the age of 26, he was conferred as a knighthood by the 10th King of Malaysia, and one of the youngest ever to receive such an honor. His business career began with just $50 when he launched a company called Vincent Siefer Clothing, which made college embossed shirts for university students in different American universities. Hey, many of you might even be wearing some of his shirts. Who knows, right? He later sold that clothing company for $5 million, and he is today the CEO of Malaysia's Petra Group. He's involved in charitable projects around the world, and he is the founder of the Good Capitalist Forum. Vinod, it is a pleasure, my friend, to have you here. You know, my question to lead things off is that, the United States is looking in the green area from a business standpoint, but we're not anywhere near what you guys are doing there. Let's talk about that one first.
I think the vision is there, Jim. I think it would be a disservice to say that you don't have people that are very much involved in looking for and aggressively pursuing green technologies. And I think it's a question of having a very big market, a lot of competition, and sometimes it's a greed factor. The greed factor plays a very important role. And I've said this before. I'm not saying greed is bad. Greed is neither good nor bad. It just is.
Right.
But the tempering of greed is critical. And often in smaller countries, often in developing economies, the ability to change mindsets and to think outside the box it becomes more apparent. In a more developed economy, that takes a lot of effort because it's easier to make money a simple way. It's easier to make money doing this. It's easy to get a contract. It's easy to provide a service, etc. And if you look at America from years ago, 150 years ago, to 60 years ago, think of the innovations that you guys came up with. You're a remarkable people, both invention and of delivering that invention to the marketplace. But I guess over time, like all economies and all cultures and societies, you become big, you become rich, and then perhaps a sense of complacency also falls in.
Well, it's funny.
Which is not.
Go ahead. Finish your thought. I apologize.
Sorry. Sometimes not the case in a developing economy that is hungry, is growing, is much smaller. You remember, most other countries are much smaller than yours. We have to reach out. Whereas in America, you've got such a big economy. A lot of your population don't even think what's outside America.
Right.
They don't look beyond their borders. Whereas countries like Malaysia and other countries, we have no choice. Malaysia has a population of 32 million people. They're tiny. It's nearly a tenth of yours. So we have no choice, but we have to look to Thailand, Indonesia, America, China as our market. So we're forced to be innovative. We're forced to think outside the box. We're forced to find new solutions for problems. Now, I'm perhaps a bit of a weirdo. I believe that there is a better way of doing things. There's a different way of being a capitalist. I believe that I can do as much with 80 million than about 100 million. Or I can do as much with 80,000 about 100,000. So that allows me then to say, well, what can I do with that excess? That's different. And it's easier then for me to pursue that sort of thought process,
right?
In a smaller marketplace, and then delivering it to a bigger marketplace. I'm allowed to take those steps. Whereas in America, it's a huge marketplace, so the challenges are more extreme, and then it requires leadership, right? Look, nothing works without leadership. And the problem with leadership is I believe people miss what true leadership is, and politics everywhere in the world has unfortunately led us into the position. To me, a leader is not someone that jumps in front of where everyone is running and then jumps again if they change direction. A leader decides the direction and will take you there kicking and screaming if you have to, because he or she believes that's where you need to go. Now, that's leadership. If he's wrong, he's wrong, but that's what leadership is. And I think that's missing in the real politics of the world today. That's missing.
You brought up a very good point on leadership. There's a brilliant biographer and presidential historian by the name of John Meacham here in the United States. And John very eloquently says there's a reason that John Fitzgerald Kennedy, President Kennedy's book, Profiles in Courage, was a 1-volume book. There's a very, very difficult time to move forward. And even Winston Churchill had a great line with regards to the United States and saying, you can always bank on America to do the right thing after they've exhausted every other possible avenue. The thing that, and I kind of led into this, and I apologize for it, because frankly, what I should have said was, you're right. There is a green initiatives here in the United States, and there's many companies, all of which are trying to do the right thing. I guess in reading through what you've said, okay, and just a minute ago, that sometimes you get, as we say here in the United States, fat, dumb, and happy. Okay, things are going well, why mess with it, right? And that's where we've had this clash between the fossil fuel group and the green initiatives, where one looks at the other as competition, and rather than, allow them to go, there's been a tremendous amount of politics that have gotten in the way of green initiatives here in the United States. And and I mean, I all the way back to the days.
That's a greed factor, isn't it?
Oh, it is 100%. Absolutely, your point to the greed factor. I mean,
and that's where the politics and the leadership come in, because we need to find a common ground where yes, look, the fossil fuel industry, they've been around a very long time. They made a lot of money.
Yep.
But they've all contributed significantly to the development of the world, especially the development of America. So it'd be unfair to say, look, now we've got to shut you down, we've got to go green. So that's where, government has to come in and say, okay, fine, listen, we need to change, we need to transform. How can we help you transform and still be a leader?
Right.
And at the same time, how do we help smaller companies grow and expand and offer new technologies that perhaps these big companies can evolve with? Now, that's where we need to bring. That's why social capitalism. This idea that businesses don't get involved in politics, businessmen don't participate in social development. It's just nonsense.
Right.
We're intrinsically we're together whether we like it or not. I can only make money if the environment, the social environment, the economic environment, if the people are in a position to either buy my products or buy my services, right? I mean, I'm a capitalist. I want your money, but I need you to have it to take it from you.
Right.
If you don't have it,
if you don't have it, I can get it. Yes.
I can get it. So I have to play a role in lifting you up. I have to play a role in ensuring there are enough people with money,
right,
that will buy my service or buy my products. So the idea that I'm not going to be involved in wealth creation is nonsense. True capitalism is wealth creation, sustainable wealth creation.
Right.
And I've often described it as, and it takes tempering of greed. I'm not sure if you've heard me say this before, but I look at greed like it's a Bugatti, the sports car.
Yes.
It's a 7-liter sports car.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
0 to 60 in 3 seconds or some nonsense like that. Now, if you go into that car and you drive it and you don't know how to drive it, you're going to crash into a tree, kill yourself, or kill someone else.
Right.
Right. But if you control it, if you know how to drive it, you know how to accelerate in the straights, you know how to slow down on the curves, you know how to brake when needed, you have control over a very powerful engine. And that's what greed is. We all have it. We're greedy for love. We're greedy for food. We're greedy for money. We're greedy for politics. We're greedy for power. We're all greedy for something. It's just part of us.
Right.
But if we can temper it, we can control it, then we have control over a very, very powerful engine. And I think that's the lesson we're trying to get across to people. Just temper it. We need it. It's something that drives us. It's something that motivates us. It's neither good nor bad. It just exists. We have it. How do we use it? Because like everything else, if we don't use anything we have, if we don't use it and temper and control it, it's going to be good.
No,
I think that's what I'm happening.
With your company, you've done phenomenal things. Let's talk a little bit about how you put together the company and how, as you've moved along, you've evolved. You've done a wonderful job of enlightening, if you will, the world to what can be done through, your many green initiatives.
Well, I mean, it's not been easy. I've taken my hits because remember, being what I am, you then make political enemies. You make people that don't want you, especially in Asia, right?
Right, sure.
We're not. We're still evolving democracy in some countries, and freedom of speech, freedom of press sometimes is questioned. And then you have someone like me that fights that and wants to push it forward. They don't like it. So the challenges are significant when you want to do this. But I believe if you're determined to do it, you just do it. And I can't say that I had a master plan in my head. I had a thought. I had a thought that, listen, we can be good guys and succeed. I don't have to wear a hair shirt to contribute to the world. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I like my big cars. I like my big house. I like traveling in comfort. I like staying in 5-star hotels. I'm not going to give any of that up because I worked hard for it. But then what? Surely life must be more than this. How can we live in a society which has more than enough money for the most ridiculous amount of expenditures, and yet people are starving? I mean, how can we live in a society where we can have at the same time simultaneous epidemics of both starvation and obesity in sometimes the same country?
Well, that would be here,
right?
in the United States.
It is illogical. It is just completely illogical, right? So this idea that nothing can change, it's only because we've decided that we're too lazy. We just it's just the way it's always been. And I think that's what's too hard to change. That we must get out of this comfortable seat we're in and say, oh, it's just the way it's always been. We need to change that narrative, and it can change. Just look at plastics. Whether it's simple things, straws and all that. If you go anywhere in the world, in Asia now, you won't find a plastic straw. Just a few years ago, it was everywhere. So mindsets can be changed. People can have an attitudinal change, but it requires leadership. So for me, I took it a slice at a time. It's like a big salami. I see a big salami, so I want it. It's nice. I want to eat the whole thing. If I try to take the whole salami, no one's going to give it to me.
Right.
Or if I get it, I probably choke on it. So I asked for a slice. You want the slice? Take it in. And ask for another slice. They'll give me another slice. It's only another slice. Eventually, I'll have half the salami anyway.
Right.
So, like all problems, we have to deal with it in a measured process. We can't expect to change things that have taken decades and decades to destroy or to go back and expect us to change it within a year, 2 years. Everything takes time. It's incremental. And I think that's the mindset we have to accept. Say, look, everything's incremental. There is no overnight changes to anything. But if we can take those first, if we can make little changes here and there, both in attitude and in action, and the way we do business, a little bit, slice by slice, I think that's how we create a greater movement. I mean, think about this. If everyone did something, not a lot, something, whether it's, hey, someone in a house has, an afternoon free a week, and it says, what, I'm going to give tuition to a few of my neighbors' kids who don't have money and can't have tuition. I'm going to teach them some maths and English because I'm free. Or, I've got a couple of hundred I don't need every month. I'm going to go and help that food, the
food bank,
the food bank or something like that. I mean, it's little things. You don't have to give 1 million, 10 million. You don't have to. If everyone did a little, that changes the world. And I know it sounds simplistic, but sometimes solutions are simple. It's just we have to decide that we have to take that step forward and do it. So maybe it takes people like me and others like me to stand up and just do it. And then get others to do it. And then others, and then others. And then they'll find different ways of doing it. They'll evolve it better. They'll deliver it better. They'll come up with better ideas. And I think that's the process that we need. So, all I'm trying to do is just get the conversation going, get something started. It might not be perfect. It'll never be perfect. It'll never be absolutely right. But heck, if we don't start with something, we'll never get going.
Correct. And the other part to your point, here in the United States, we've I would say, probably 20 years now in the automobile industry. There's been a push. First, it was the hybrid cars, where you were running on combination of battery and hopefully less fuel. And then now we've evolved all the way into the electric, automobile situation. And it was a mindset that Detroit, where the car companies, are all located in the United States, or anyway, they didn't embrace it at first, but now they really have embraced it, knowing that, what, with less moving parts in a car and simply batteries, the car's going to last longer. And so we can sell it, and we can, go back to
Make
the
more
old
money.
model of making money. And oh, by the way, turning an entire generation onto a new way of transportation, which in the long run is beneficial to us, because the cost margins of not building an engine versus just putting a battery with small engines in the car is a hell of a lot, more cost effective than developing, 4 different types of engines. You're talking about the Bugatti. I mean, it's basically, take the engine out of the Bugatti, but put a smaller engine with an electric battery in it, and you can still get speed out of it because the car weighs less.
And imagine if Detroit had decided to evolve this so much earlier.
Right.
How much faster and how much quicker they would have made money. And I think that's across the board. There's so much they can do if they prepare. It takes a bit of effort and work to begin with. Like I said, it's a leap you have to take. But then the future is yours. The future is yours, and this is that vision we need to have. People play checkers too much, not chess. And life is generally chess. All right, it's the whole board. It's your strategy for the whole board. Right? You might have to give up a pawn, give up a bishop, give up a castle.
Sure.
At the end of the day, it's to win that board, it's to get the other king. And what moves you have to make. And I think that's what we in society have to look at. Saving the world, saving the planet, and it is an issue of saving the planet. It's no longer a throwaway line.
No.
Ensuring that we can have some sort of. Look, I'm not a socialist. I am a capitalist. But for capitalism to truly survive, everyone has to be able to live. Right? And so to do that, we have to think so many steps ahead to say, what are the moves we have to make and what do we need to sacrifice now so our long term is sustainable?
Well, I mean,
so that we can all keep doing what we're doing.
There's democratic socialism, which basically is not taking away from the capitalist system. It's simply saying that we must, as a country here in the United States or any country, be capable of providing services for everyone. And that's the poorest of the poor.
Right. And I would tell you, I'm a capitalist and I agree with you 100%. And I've said this before. I've said society should be responsible for a minimum. Everyone should have a minimum, a full head, a full stomach, and a roof over your head.
Right.
Now, it doesn't matter that roof is hostel beds, but at least a safe place for them to sleep at night.
Sure.
They should have access to food. And they should have, if they choose to, have access to education.
Right.
Now, that's what society should be responsible for. I don't believe society needs to be responsible for anything else. And a healthcare, a healthy body.
Right.
That's an absolute. Right? I don't understand America. I don't get you guys. Why it's such an issue.
There's something for you. I don't get it either. And I live here.
I don't, but anyway, that's a minimum that should be provided. After that, it should be a free-for-all. If people are happy just to have that, to live in a hostel in a bed shared with a bunch of others, have their 3 meals a day, and that's all they want, that they're content with that, that's fine. Society should be responsible for funding at least that for everybody. But after that, people should do what they want. If they want to be a billionaire, let them be a billionaire. If they want to have jets, let them have jets. Let them be whatever they want to be. But we as a society must ensure everyone has that minimum. And I think where I have an argument with some socialists, where I have an argument with some socialists, is they believe more than that. And that's where I disagree.
Right.
I see that the human spirit must do.
Right.
right?
I mean,
That there must be some responsibility for taking more that must come with yourself, your ability, and your drive.
it's my father. I mean, I too am a capitalist. My father was in the automobile industry, with both first for General Motors, then with the Ford Motor Company. But I was always instilled in me through my father that to truly be successful, you have to look out for everybody, and
Absolutely.
that you have to look at things on a global level, not just on a what's going on in the neighborhood level, because we are all together in this game. And that taking, and helping people who are down on their luck or things are not doing as well as you might be doing will in the long run benefit you, because these people will remember that, that you helped. And
Right.
even if
Let me give a prime example.
go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, let me give you a prime example. What your father is saying, where he's absolutely right. I mean, I love the fact your father said that, because that is exactly the way we should look at it. When someone's down on the floor, especially during this COVID epidemic,
Sure.
this pandemic, all right? During this pandemic, there are many companies on the floor, especially contractors,
Right.
renovation people, because no one's doing business, no one's, and we are building some things, and my architect, my project manager would say, I think we can squeeze them down. We can get them to work at cost. Don't worry with it. They're we can get them really low and make them work on 3 projects. And my view is, I said, no. Look, when someone's on the floor, you don't put your boot on their neck. Because you put the boot on their neck, you might save a few percent more. Lift your hand, put your hand out, lift them up. They will be yours forever at that moment. Now, maybe it costs you a little bit more, but not much. But you're going to have the most loyal people helping you and doing your stuff forever. They're going to remember you forever.
Yeah.
Do that to the next person. Do that to the next person. I mean,
Well, it's
that's
also
what's
as a
needed now.
family at that point. You've created a community. You've created a group of people that, as you just said,
and they will do it to
follow
others.
you forever.
And I believe they'll do it to others. They will remember this, and when they do well, and they will all do well eventually, they will follow the same process.
Right.
Look, my father taught me, just like your father told you this. My father taught me, good guys win. It takes a bit longer sometimes, hurts a hell of a lot more sometimes.
Right.
But in the end, good guys win. But the key is, can you remain the good guy? Because in that process, they're going to try to turn you. They're going to try to beat you down.
Right.
You're going to be, you're going to have all sorts of things thrown at you. People are going to try to buy your soul. Can you remain the good guy? But if you do, you will win. And, I went through a period during the previous government, 10 years, 12 years ago, where they came after me because I was a reformer. And how dare a businessman speak about reform, political reform, in a Southeast Asian country? You don't do that sort of thing. And they came after me.
Not a healthy thing to do. Let's put it that way.
Not a healthy thing. No, not a healthy thing. But they came after me. They came after me in every way. After bank accounts, after this, after that. Jail me for this. Find out, concoct all sorts of stories, right stories. And it was tough. How do you stay the good guy? And then they offer you the world if you're willing to do A, B, and C.
Right.
Because politically it suits them. And you have a choice, either to give in and say, fine, fuck this. I'm going to go do, excuse my language, I'm sorry.
That's
sorry
all right. Look, see,
you can blip it.
The title of the podcast is politically incorrect, so there's nothing you can say it's going to offend me.
But, it's and you give in. Or you just, take the chance and go forward. And because I believed so much that my father was right, that he couldn't be wrong, I just stayed true. We just, kept at it. And, we came out. And we won. And we grew. And we evolved. And so, I do believe that the world is ready to make these changes. And I've seen it. This pandemic, I've seen humanity, the best sides of humanity. I mean, yes, often you see the worst as well. But this pandemic, at least from what I've seen and the people I've seen operate, I've really seen people rise to the challenge. around the world,
Mm-hmm.
and in my region, in my country. And it's very heartening. It means that we can.
Mm-hmm.
And also, did you see how fast human nature just came back? That the reversal of the beating it took. In Malaysia, anyway, the skies were clearer. The water suddenly became cleaner. We suddenly had otters and all that in our rivers that were too filthy before. We had dolphins coming down the Straits of Malacca, which
Wow.
is the busiest,
Right.
trading route in this region. Now, it took 2 months of lockdown to do this.
Right.
We were always saying, "Oh, this would be decades, 100 years to reverse the damage," but it didn't. It doesn't take that long. So now we know it doesn't take a lot to reverse even the environmental damage we've done.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is possible now, and I'm just hoping that we've listened to the lessons being taught to us now. We've seen the challenges that actually we all face together. And if leadership can rise to this challenge and provide real solutions and take the road less traveled, just take the road less traveled, I think almost everything is possible.
Well, I think that to your point, here in the United States, we're not quite as disciplined, and that's been a problem for us during COVID-19.
Why do you consider freedom of? Why do you? I don't understand. Why would you guys consider wearing a mask or being told to wear a mask a challenge to your freedom of? I know your what freedom? Which freedom do they say? That's freedom of speech or freedom? I don't get it.
Let me put it.
You don't fight against seatbelts.
No.
I think you have a law about seatbelts, yeah?
Right. There's an old saying that comes from a professional sports icon in the United States who was a coach who said, "I can't teach stupid." And that is pretty much where we are here. I have 5 masks. Okay. I don't leave. Literally, I live in a condominium building. I do not, when I open the door to leave my apartment in the condo building, I put the mask on. I don't even go to the elevator to go downstairs into the lobby to pick up mail without wearing the mask the entire way, up and back. That's
the smart thing to do.
It's not difficult. That's number one. That's the easiest thing you can do. Secondly, for those out there who wrongly think that it is a violation of their civil rights, it's not. There's 7 different cases from 1920 through 2017 that proves that the greater good trumps, no pun intended, trumps what the trumps the concept that you have a right. If I need you for the country to wear a mask, and I order you to wear a mask, and say that I will fine you or jail you if you don't wear a mask, I have that right because I'm looking after the 320 million people who live in the country over the one person who chooses not to wear a mask. So we keep it's become political, which is ridiculous. We have a pandemic that rather than joining together and trying to fight it, we've found ourselves in the middle of a battle over whether one side is right or the other side is right. And meanwhile, the pandemic is killing Democrats and Republicans. The pandemic doesn't differentiate what your political party is. It kills you all. So when you said 20 minutes ago, you don't understand our country, that one, my friend, is something I will never understand why people will not try to do. The least, this wearing a mask is the absolute least thing you can do to try. And even that's too much for some people.
Yeah, I don't get it. Well, I think you have an interesting administration right now. None of us have ever seen anything like this before.
Really?
You know, I'm not a citizen of your country. I have no right to speak about what your country
No,
does.
believe me, you have.
It surprises us all. We
Yeah.
we sit back in amazement.
Well, we're basically in a 3-year hangover here, as to what the hell just happened. You wake up and go, I don't know what just happened, but I'm not so sure it was the wisest thing that ever happened. Let's. This is where I come to the point of shameless plugs, and that is, by all means, we want to follow you on social media. We want to be able to. Your YouTube channel is very entertaining, by the way. I get a big kick out of it, and so let's go ahead. Give me your spiel, so we know where to follow you and how to continue to connect.
I'm on Facebook. I think what's my Facebook? It's Vinod_Sekhar. Okay. Oh, no, Vinod.Sekhar. Vinod.Sekhar on my Facebook. And I'm on Instagram, Vinod_Sekhar, and I've got a YouTube channel called Shaken Not Stirred. Sekhar, Not Stirred.
Actually, I like that.
Look, it's just you like that? That's my venting. It's when I need to vent. So it's my venting phase. Just venting about whatever gets on my mind. But I think I'm out there to do this because I just want to share my views and my ideas and maybe infect someone with a little bit of what I think and see what they can do with it. Because I think it's ideas, it's collaborative ideas that'll change this world. All countries are not the same, all cultures are not the same, but perhaps we can take bits of what each other have and expand it and improve whatever we have. And I think that's what I'd like to do. So I'm going to keep trying doing it. And I mean, I've heard so much about your podcast, but again, my part of the world don't know about it. And we get CNN and Fox News and that sort of stuff. But allow me to introduce your stuff to our side of the world as well. I'll get and get it heard by the rest of the world. See, what you guys don't understand is it's the normal term, right? President of the United States, leader of the free world.
Right.
What you don't understand is actually, in many ways, that is absolutely true. I mean, no longer about nuclear weapons and military powers. I mean, that's putting that aside. But from a cultural angle, from a economic angle, you're the big brother, right? You are the big brother. We, I mean, what's that old thought? You fart, we smell it,
right?
Whether we like it or not. Right? It's a fact.
We get a cold, you sneeze. Yes.
Oh yeah, we get pneumonia, mate.
Right, that's true. That's probably true.
Right, so what happens to your country is very important to us. What happens in China affects us, but not as much as what happens to your country, because you are without question, at the moment, one of the most significant, biggest economies for the rest of us, and you have such a major impact in our societal development, because we watch your movies, we watch your TV shows, we see your jokes, we see your comedians, we listen to your music, and that's a significant impact, and I think a lot of Americans don't realize that.
Well, one of the fun things that I've been able to do with the podcast is I've always gone into this as, yes, I'm from the United States, but I'm a citizen of the world. I've had the pleasure of, traveling quite a bit and being in Europe, in Asia, and throughout the South America and throughout the rest of the world. And we're not all that different. We all share the same goals and the same wants and the same needs. And we are, whether we like it or not, as you just put, we are in this thing together. And I think it's a lot of fun to have people like yourself to come on and talk about the fact that, you know what, at the end of the day, what you want, what I want, what your neighbors want, whatever, it's not that far apart. And if we just work together, then maybe things would be a little easier for all of us.
Well, your mouth to God's ears. I mean, at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. I wish more Americans would come out and say that. I think the more important thing is this needs to get across to your colleges. The most fun I've had is when I've come and spoken at some of your universities, and I meet the students and talk to them, and some of your high schools.
Yeah, for sure.
They're so fascinated, they're so excited, and they don't have enough information about what goes on there, except what they see in the news. And let's be honest, the news isn't so exciting. It's always negative.
That's true.
Sensationalism means that to sell, to get eyeballs, you need to be sensational. People want to see. It's all the negatives. Yes, it's news, so you need to say it. But there's so much positives out there to sell, but they don't. And to talk about that, to get people excited about what's possible in different countries, I think we need more of that in America. We need more people from our side of the world coming to America, talking to Americans. We need Americans coming and talking to us.
For sure.
Otherwise, we just get what's seen on the news bit, in TV set.
Yeah.
Right? That's all we get.
That's scary.
Yes. And that is scary, right?
Yeah.
Whichever side you're on, it's scary.
Sure.
If that's the only thing that defines a culture or a people.
Special thanks to our guest, Vinod Sekhar. And all the information on Vinod is in our show box below. Be sure to check him out. Very interesting fella and someone who you're going to want to follow unquestionably. Okay? All right. We'll be back with some final thoughts and some more conversation about what we're going to be covering next week in the Milwaukee Democratic National Convention. But first, these words from BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
At BMW, we know leaving the road wasn't easy, but anticipating our return taught us to appreciate every drive. The exhilaration of the ultimate adventure. Moments spent with your favorite co-pilots. And the freedom to explore just because. Our time to rejoin the road is finally here.
Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. Now, if for some reason you're not one of the over 35,000 people who've taken the time to subscribe to our podcast, well, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we make it easy because it's free. You can find us at the Apple Podcast Store. We're part of the Apple Podcast family. Same thing over at Google. We're part of the Google Podcast family and proud to be there. We're also happy to be with Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and, of course, YouTube, just to name a few. Now, for some reason, you can't seem to find us on your podcast area. Not a problem. Just type in on the old Google machine, the Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams. Hit the favorite button or the subscribe button, and each week you're going to get a brand new edition of the podcast sent directly to your phone, to your tablet, or hopefully to both anywhere you are in the world. Okay? All right. Now, you're going to really want to subscribe because over the next 80 days, as we get very close to the upcoming 2020 election, we are going to be bringing you the most updated information that we can as we move closer to the election. Now, as you know, this week, big news, and that is former Vice President Joe Biden, the presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party, picked his running mate. Of course, that is a woman who we predicted 3 weeks ago would get the nod, and that, of course, is California Senator Kamala Harris. So it's Biden and Harris going against Trump and Pence in the fall. We will be speaking with a number of people over the next week as we are live from Milwaukee via Zoom, because it's a virtual convention, as we cover the Democratic National Convention via Zoom, while some of them will be in Milwaukee. We'll try to get a number of top names from the Democratic Party. I don't doubt that we will have a number, including, quite frankly, the possibility of nominee Biden and or Vice President nominee Kamala Harris. So pay attention. We will be alerting you along the way as we cover the Democratic National Convention. Until that time, have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for joining us. And we'll be back next week right here on the Politically Incorrect Podcast. Take care and be safe.